It's 6 a.m. and today I'm doing Andrew Huberman's morning routine. Andrew Huberman is a neuroscientist who's a professor at Stanford, and he absolutely blew up when he launched the Huberman Lab podcast. He has had a huge number of really well-educated guests, and the goal of the podcast is to educate people through science. I want to do much the same. Now, we have totally different areas where he is hyper-fixated on neuroplasticity, and I'm obviously hyper-fixated on health and performance, but if you can get a good routine going that helps your brain to improve your mental performance, your physical performance, how could you not do it? So today, I am doing Andrew Huberman's morning routine. Started by getting up at 6 a.m. and the first thing he does is head out on a walk. Now, before actually getting stuck into any sort of walk, he says you should be recording the time that you wake up. The reason for that is 2 hours before the time you wake up is when your body temperature is at its lowest. Then you can use that to your advantage if you were to say change time zones and you needed to reduce the time or increase the time that you'd like to sleep. And you could do that because if you increase the temperature of the room, your body isn't going to get cool as fast, meaning that's going to push that time later. And if you cool the room down more, it's going to pull the time earlier and you'll tend to wake up slightly earlier. So 6 a.m. today, you're going to learn a lot of odd things today. Now, usually this walk is 10 to 15 minutes, but he says if it's overcast, 15 to 20 minutes. So we're going to walk a little bit longer today. And the reason for it is actually pretty strange. He says it increases your cortisol. Now, in strength world and fitness world, cortisol is a stress hormone that we want to minimize as much as possible. But he actually refers to it as an energy hormone, where you're going to have cortisol spikes during the day. And the best time to have it is in the morning because it's going to be enough to wake you up, increase your focus and attention. And one of the best ways to start that is to get out, get moving, get into sunlight, even if it's under cloud, and start your day going that way. Helps as well, obviously, with circadian rhythm, where things like when is your cortisol going to spike and decline? When is your melatonin going to spike and decline? And he says this is actually incredibly helpful for sleeping later tonight. I'm always skeptical when people blow up on social media, and sort of doubly so when there's someone with credentials. And as someone with credentials myself, it's easy to sort of say, here's my credential, I'm an expert. And then you start diversifying your expert fields past what you're actually an expert at. And so with Huberman, there's certain things where they're really, really cool. And he is a proper neuroscientist, a proper professor. But sometimes when he'll say things in the realm of health and fitness, it makes me just wonder, where are you getting that from? And why are you thinking like that? And there's two possibilities. One, either maybe I don't know as much as I think I know, or two, sometimes you're just saying stuff to be a little bit cutting edge, a little bit sensational. Nothing I've heard from him is bad advice, but some of it is just confusing. You'll get to that when we go to the gym later today and talk about his fitness routine. But say, writing down the time you wake up every morning. Well, if you're waking up with an alarm, you know what time you're waking up every morning. So why are we journaling on top of setting an alarm? Maybe if you hit snooze or whatnot, but I feel like you'd have a pretty good idea pretty quickly. We also get to the problem of how practical are some of these things versus how useful are they? And I think you gotta figure it out for yourself. This morning, I'm going 100%. Maybe we'll pull something from it. Hopefully you can pull something from it as well. But in the end, whatever routine is going to work for you is what's going to work for you. This is just the best according to science. All right, back from the walk, about 20 minutes, and now it's time to rehydrate. But rehydrating to Huberman is a little bit different. So most people, glass of water, good to go. But Huberman, since he's on low carb and lives a relatively active lifestyle, he drinks salt water. Now, he also talks about how since he's low carb, his insulin stays relatively low, And insulin helps to resorb sodium, or reabsorb sodium, I should say, at the kidney level. So if you have low insulin levels, low blood sugar levels, you're not going to absorb sodium as much as you should. Therefore, your sodium is going to be low. Increase the digestion of sodium, increase the ingestion of sodium. Feels like I'm drinking my pool. Now, low sodium diets have been often prescribed to people with cardiovascular disease, but there's more and more research coming out that sodium might not actually be the water retention, hypertension causing micronutrient that we think it is. And I actually, through Stanford, have been instructed to drink water with sodium and sugar in it to help with absorption through the gut. So research is evolving, but maybe salt is not that bad for you when we're not talking about excess. If we're talking about processed foods that have grams and grams of salt in it, different story. But a little bit of salt added into your water in a relatively healthy diet otherwise could actually be more health forward than health compromising. But it tastes like shit. After the glass of salt water, we're now coming to do one of my least favorite things in the world and getting into some cold water. Now, he talks about a lot of benefits of this. When I've looked myself, the physical benefits seem very limited, but we're talking about a neuroscientist right now. So maybe there's more going on than we might think. So when you jump in the shower and it's cold, you're gonna have adrenaline and noradrenaline, or epinephrine and norepinephrine getting released, which is certainly gonna help you feel a little bit more energized and focused. It also has a lasting dopamine release, according to him. There's an obvious element of brain training for resilience and grit, which I think is probably the only huge benefit in my opinion. Although these neurochemicals they're a real thing, so I will listen to Huberman on that one. The other thing he talks about is increased metabolism. This is just not true. This is not going to help you lose weight. Please never do this for weight loss. But for productivity, for focus, for energy, potentially it has some bearing. Now he says in total, 11 minutes per week is precisely what you should be doing. That breaks down to about 1 minute 35. That's what I'm gonna try to do today. And he talks about going in cold water as different walls.
One way to approach this, and the way that I particularly favor, is to take the context of the day and the moment into account and start to be able to sense the release of epinephrine, and norepinephrine in our brain and body, and see those as walls that we want to climb over in order to build resilience, and to start counting the number of walls that we traverse and the distance between those walls as we do deliberate cold exposure.
As in, every time you hit a wall where you're like, nope, I gotta get out, you work through that, your brain will calm down. And so apparently I should go through about 3 of those walls here. One of them is right now, even wanting to get into the shower in the first place. So without further ado, here we go. It's just dumb. Like, I don't understand why we have to do this. And it's supposed to be neck down, by the way. No head, not getting your head wet, because then you get brain freeze. The neuroscientists wouldn't like that. Give a little spinneroo. Make sure all your bits and pieces get nice and cold, because this will make you happy and productive. Do you know what? I'm gonna just go. I'm gonna not listen to Huberman. I'm gonna get even colder. The good thing is, he does permit you to warm up the shower afterwards, which I will be taking full advantage of. People who like this are strange. If you're a person who enjoys this, I just don't understand anything about you. 3, 2, 1, boom. All right, I am gonna warm up briefly, and I will meet you back in the kitchen. So after waking up early, walking for 20 minutes, drinking salt water, and going for a cold shower, I've earned myself a coffee. Now, he doesn't promote drinking coffee in the first little bit of the day. He says an hour and a half to 2 hours after you wake up should be the minimum amount of time before you drink caffeine, because you're gonna be prone to a caffeine crash later in the day if you drink it earlier. Now, he is a proponent of caffeine, which is surprising to me, but it is a very powerful neurochemical. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, which not many substances that we ever take do, and caffeine is underappreciated for how strong and how potent it can be on your health, and in this case, your performance. The reason for that is it blocks a neurotransmitter called adenosine, which is responsible for sleep and relaxation, and it also increases dopamine. So we feel better, we feel happier, we have more energy, and we have more focus. For those of you who drink coffee, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, Huberman suggests 90 to 100 milligram doses of caffeine at a time. And this is to get the benefit while reducing the risk of anxiety, sweats, heart palpitations, increased heart rate, all the side effects that you don't want. And he suggests anywhere from 100 to 400 milligrams per day of caffeine. In a normal cup of coffee, we're getting about 40, so I've gone with a double shot of espresso in my long black coffee today. By the way, long black coffee is the only way to have it. If you start putting milk in there, you're drinking milk. You're an adult, just drink coffee, you'll be fine. All right, now I've had my morning coffee. I did a little bit of work. I cheated a bit, but you're supposed to have your morning coffee and then 90 minutes until you start working. One of the things that he does is meditation. The benefits of meditation are extensive in claim, but in reality, I don't know. Anyway, today I am doing it. Cue the meditation montage. Om. 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 Om.
Get off the counter.
So meditation all done. I think that was really effective. I think it worked really well. Now it's not quite 90 minutes after having coffee, but I'm just gonna get stuck into my day, into my work. Now he does 90-minute blocks at a time. You'll notice 90 minutes after coffee, 90 minutes of work at a time, because these are what's called ultradian cycles, which are inherently how we're designed to focus and pay attention. And in that time, you can accomplish a hell of a lot more than if you try to chunk more time at once. I don't know how true that is, but Huberman certainly believes that to be the case. And he does accomplish a hell of a lot. So there is something to be listened to in terms of productivity. Right now, he's writing a book that's coming out in 2025. He is a Stanford professor, still publishing papers, and he's got his podcasts that he does on a weekly basis. His output is incredible, so that cannot be overlooked. I'm gonna get stuck into my work here, 90 minutes of work, and then finally, we're gonna get into first meal. All right, into meal number one, which is a lunchtime meal, because he does intermittent fasting. Now, this is where I start to have some problems with Huberman, where you have your area of expertise that doesn't make you an expert on everything. So for diet, he does very low carb, sticks primarily to animal-based sources of food. So he's gonna go with beef or steak, and then if he feels like he needs it, he'll have a little bit of rice on the side. And that's all he will have for his breakfast. Certainly not something I would consider to be a complete breakfast. If you wanna know what I eat in a day, go ahead and check out that video there. But let's get stuck into meal number one. Now, I am going to have rice because I'm a growing boy and I need the rice. Beautiful. It's a weird first meal of the day. I'll say that much. Meal over. We're gonna head off to the gym now, and I'm gonna share with you some rather confusing advice that Huberman has around exercise. But he does say exercising in the late morning or early afternoon, those are the two times that cortisol is supposed to be the highest. Now, again, I don't really understand, because he said spike it in the morning, but then he also said it spikes late morning and it also spikes early afternoon. This guy is obsessed with cortisol, obviously, but early afternoon, we'll go train. This is pretty normal for me, to be honest, beef and rice. Head off and train, and you're gonna join me for a Huberman style workout. Okay, so we're at the gym, and I said I was going to do resistance training Andrew Huberman style, but I'm not, because it is not the best thing to do. Let me talk you through it. He says you should do 2 exercises for every muscle group. One where the lengthened position is under the highest load, and one where the contracted position is under the highest load. He gave example of one is a seated calf raise and one is a standing calf raise. What are you talking about? I have no idea. I don't know on what planet this is a way to think about exercise. Maybe I'm totally missing something here, but it's certainly not the way I'm going to train. For you should be looking at compound movements, heavy loads, relatively heavy loads, and working relatively hard, say 8+ out of 10. And that's going to be a good place. If we're talking about health and longevity, that's a good place to start. I've put many videos out on performance and how to train for performance, but the whole muscles lengthen, muscle shorten thing, it's incredibly confusing. It creates a big barrier to entry. So instead, you're going to see me hit a huge deadlift today. We're going to do a deadlift session and then wrap up our morning Andrew Huberman style. Oh, whew. All right, we changed up the workout a little bit, but that is Andrew Huberman's morning routine, or at least what he recommends to be everyone's morning routine. We got up, we recorded the time we got up, we went for a walk, we drank salt water, went in a cold shower, we meditated very well, did a bit of work, a little bit of coffee, come out and train. And this is only half the day. I mean, for all the criticisms I might have, that's a pretty productive start to the day. I would love to know your guys' thoughts. Go ahead, pop them in the comments. If you have nothing else to say, leave a moose dropping, which is just a period down in the comment section to help out the algorithm. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. It's free to you and means the world to us, and lets us keep making these videos. As per usual, lift and be kind, and we will catch you next time.